I'm Ariel Epstein. I do all the video content on air for Fanatics Sportsbook, also at MLB Network and NBA TV. Scot McClintic is here with me, and he's the mastermind behind Fanatics Sportsbook, our chief product officer at Fanatics Betting and Gaming. So let's start with first, of course, our motto here is that, you did it one time, and now why don't we just do it twice, right?
Glutton for punishment.
That's what they say about us in this business. Before we dive into it, where are you from and how did you get into this?
So I'm from Philadelphia now, grew up in Jersey, played hockey in Minnesota, been all over the place. Always been an athlete and a lover of sports since the earliest days of my life. I bounced around across a bunch of different industries, but I ended up landing at this little mom and pop called Comcast NBC Universal. And this was in the pre-PASPA days, early 2018. So it's like 6 years ago, going on 60. Feels like an eternity. At that point in time, what we recognized at Comcast was there's going to be a major shift underway if sports betting does become legal. We had a lot of sports media rights with Sunday Night Football, NHL, MLB, et cetera. And so we started exploring different sports betting opportunities, realized that the journey into sports betting was going to be a bit slower than I wanted at Comcast. So I ended up jumping to a company called, at the time, Penn National Gaming, and started building a sports betting and gaming product. And I had absolutely no experience doing anything like that ever in my life. And so at least at that point, you had no idea really what success looked like. You kind of just try to make the best decisions at that point in time, knowing that you're trying to navigate yourself through the wild, wild west of the early days of sports betting. And it culminated in a wild ride, probably the wildest ride of my career up until Fanatics.
Yeah, because, you start out in something that you've never imagined. So it's so nice you did it twice as our motto. You built the Barstool Sportsbook with Penn. Let's get back to those early days. What did you learn in the positive from those early days?
In the positive, it takes 8 days in a week, so to speak, to actually do this the right way. I think what we did at what ended up becoming Barstool Sportsbook and Casinos, we not only scaled our business from 1 to 2 people to 500, but we also built a world-class engineering and product team, which is the core foundation of any successful consumer-facing technology company in the world. And I think at that point in time, what we really tried to do was say, look, we know what the Barstool audience wants. They want a well-functioning, basic sports betting and gaming app. You just need to aim directly down the middle of the fairway, do that stuff really well, and leave innovation for the future, because we didn't have the luxury of really thinking about how we were going to reinvent the category of sports betting. It was speed to market. Publicly traded company obviously has public company pressures, and we knew what the Barstool audience wanted. So we built an app that worked. It was the fastest downloaded app in real money gaming history at that point in time. We had great partners with White Hat Gaming and Canby, and we built what we thought was a very compelling consumer-facing front-end experience. And so the risk-taking was a bit more at a minimum. More of the risk was on the $500 million check that we ended up cutting to buy Barstool Sports. And product was, even in hindsight, we took a lot of risks that we didn't know we were taking at that point in time, but hindsight is 2020. We got a lot of stuff right. We got a lot of stuff not right. But overall, the end product at the end of the day, if you will, was something we could be very proud of. But it was fairly basic.
So you were proud of it. Then, of course, we got to ask about the opposite side. What were the challenges behind it?
So in the world of Barstool Sports, every day, what is it? The days are long, the years are short. And so you never knew what you had to react to if you're working with a partner like Barstool. And so I think that's where we started to see the interjection of a lot of innovation of Dave Portnoy or Big Cat would think of something, because we controlled a decent amount of the front-end consumer-facing experience, we could react very quickly to it. Whereas if we outsourced everything, you would never be able to react at that speed that you needed to keep up with the minds, the creative geniuses and minds over at Barstool. But overall, I would say that the challenges were, one, reacting very quickly to the media and the content, but two, when you build very quickly and you try to get to market very quickly in a fragmented country from a gaming perspective like the U.S., you don't necessarily appreciate the risks that you're taking along the way. We did have, one thing I think we did particularly right, which was we always framed it up this way, which is if I'm on an Amtrak in Boston and I'm going down to DC, I want the app to never feel different for the customer. I want my bets to come with me. I want my money to come with me. There's going to be local state nuances and regs. Fine, you can't control that. But for the things that we can control, how do we make the customer experience super seamless? So we did that well. But when you do that and you build this thing for the first time, and at that point in time in 2019, it was only really DraftKings with the traveling wallet and to some extent FanDuel, you realize that there's a lot of debt that you accrue when you make these decisions quickly. So I would say net, really positive, very good decisions. A lot of takeaways, a lot of mistakes, a lot of brain damage that you hope to channel into, your next journey so you don't replicate the mistakes of the past.
You went into your next journey, which was not Fanatics yet. You end up going to PaySafe. What did you learn from switching from Penn to PaySafe?
Yeah, so I was at PaySafe for about 6 months. We ended up taking the company public via SPAC transaction with Bill Foley. And at that point in time, what I realized is that there's just a massive opportunity for supply-side service companies into gaming, payments, geo, KYC. Obviously, there's a massive move around logic-based rules engines, promo engines that sit on the periphery of tech stacks and all that. But I think what I recognized at PaySafe at that point in time was this is a big market. I want to see what I can do from a supply-side B2B perspective. Which maybe the next question would be, how did your journey at PaySafe start to come to an end? And I'll save you that one because I started raising money for a B2B supply-side company. I won't go into the details because it ended up never getting off the ground for a reason, for Fanatics. But I started raising money for that supply-side company because I thought it was going to be very disruptive. And I think when you look at the category of gaming, it's the picks and shovels plays that provide something super compelling at a very attractive cost. It's the consumer-facing brands that can build and own and maintain a world-class customer experience and reach customers very cheaply and acquire them very cheaply. And so unless you're kind of operating on those two ends of the spectrum, it's very hard to compete and reach critical mass and escape velocity if you're somewhere in the middle. I felt PaySafe was somewhat on the supply side. And then I started to foray into, this other venture that never really got off the ground.
Well, then Fanatics gets off the ground and you get a call in June 2023 from former FanDuel CEO who's now with Fanatics, Matt King. How'd that conversation go?
Yeah, 2021. It's only
2021.
Yeah, 2021. So when I was raising money for this startup, I had about $4 million indicatively raised. And I was getting down to term sheet level with one anchor investor and a bunch of smaller investors. And one of those investors said, "Hey, are you sure you want to do this?" And I said, I don't know. I think so. But what do I know? I really don't know what I want to do. I'm kind of making this up as I go along. And he's like, just give it another week. Just give it another week. Trust me, you've been shortlisted to be part of something special. I'm like, dude, you're being really, really vague to me right now, so I don't really know what that means. But I'm just going to kind of put my head down and keep doing my thing. And then a week later, the announcement comes out that Matt King's resigning as the CEO of FanDuel, and he calls me the same day. And I'm like, oh, that's what you meant. Okay, I get it now. And within 24 hours of that conversation with Matt King, I end up meeting Michael Rubin and spending 2 hours with him to understand what's his vision for what Fanatics should be. And I think when you first meet a guy like Michael Rubin and you work for him, I spent a lot of time with him. Today, yesterday, his presence is not only literally felt, but it kind of permeates indirectly throughout our organization. It's to challenge constraints. And so to give you an example of one of those first conversations, as I was thinking about the world of, say, market access, of just licenses coming from the Penn gaming world, those are the constraints that you operate within. It's, okay, if you're going to get market access, you got to work with a casino, you got to work with a sports team. You talk to someone like Michael Rubin, he would say, why don't I just buy another sports team? So that way I can get access into a state that we maybe previously didn't have access to. That's the way that this guy's mind operates. And so for me, I remember that just like it was yesterday, because now I'm like, okay, I don't want to build Barstool again. I don't want to build, and Matt doesn't want to build FanDuel again. We want to build something that we think can stand the test of time, that can really differentiate itself over the course of the next couple of decades in this space. But you need somebody bold, willing, and financially, I would say, stable enough to underwrite that type of risk. And that's what I felt when I spoke to Matt, spoke to Michael, and it's been a hell of a journey since.
We've talked a lot before this. You mentioned second mover in the industry. What does that mean to you?
Google was never was not the first search engine. Spotify was not the first music company. I think when you are a second mover, you have a chance to kind of separate yourself from the fray and the chaos and maybe the inefficiency or lack of discipline that usually accompanies first movers. And so from my perspective, we had a lot of not only experience in the room to make sure we didn't replicate those mistakes from the past, but we also could see, okay, what's working in the market, what's not working in the market, do a lot of customer research. I mean, I can say that the data visibility, it could be data science, it could be just a strategy, research, insights, intelligence. We have more visibility here at Fanatics into what the customer wants than any company I've ever worked for in my career. And we had a lot of time to kind of let that play out. So for the first 6 months of this journey, it was research. It was designing a bunch of different types of experiences and figuring out what would track and what would not track. And so for us, what we recognize is that customers really want something better. They don't necessarily know what it is that they want. And the way that we've started to rationalize it is, like, my favorite product is Spotify. And I really feel like the rest of the market is iTunes in 2005. And there's an opportunity for a second mover to come in and say, sure, cataloging music, cataloging bets, cataloging odds boosts or promos, etc., was the way that it always has been. It seems transformative, it seems disruptive. But then what if someone comes in later and says, yeah, we'll have all that, but we're going to reinvent what personalization actually means to you. We're going to package this up in a way that not only is accessible for a more novice type of user, but doesn't alienate the power user. Market depth, market breadth, it's going to be something that you always have to chase. There's always going to be something new you can bet on. But like, that's the easy stuff, because you can kind of see where the market's going, and then it becomes just a velocity and timeline question. But the step order changes, that's where we've made a lot of long-term bets that are just starting to pay dividends now, and that's personalization. We've invested a lot of time and resources in search. So, like, if you go onto our app and you type in CMC, most other apps would be like, what is CMC? But everyone knows that's Christian McCaffrey. And right now you can type that into our search bar and you'll be able to find Christian McCaffrey immediately. So these are the types of things that it takes a lot of discipline and a very strong stomach to make these investments 2 years ago. When Matt, Ariel, and I started, it was 3 of us, and we're 900 people now. And the majority of the concentration of investment has been around these long-term bets, like search, personalization, our Discover feed, which we're rolling out a brand new version of ahead of March Madness. And this stuff takes time and it's hard. But as a second mover, you can kind of focus in on what the customer really wants. What are the real pain points? When someone says, I don't like something, what do you mean? And then ask the second and third derivative questions around that. And then what are the consumer-facing solutions you can apply to solve those problems? And the last thing I would say is, another kind of the Amtrak example before, I'm up here, I'm going down here. How do you make the experience seamless? Well, I think about it now of, okay, as a customer, you can be between 21 and let's say 40. What apps are you using? Using Spotify, Airbnb, Grubhub, Uber, maybe Robinhood, or maybe these other apps. Do we want to be like them? No, I don't want to be like them. I want to reinvent what it means to be in gaming. But if I've got those apps open and I'm backgrounding one and I'm pulling up another one and I'm backgrounding that one and pulling up another one, do we belong in the same category? Right. It needs to feel native. It needs to feel seamless. It can't feel like it's out of place. And that's what we've been setting out to do since the beginning.
Yeah, the personalization was so key because it's so different from everyone else that if I just like to bet on UFC, I might just get UFC on my main page instead of them telling me what else I want to bet on. Like, maybe I'm not a baseball fan, for example. But you talk about natively. So you built the app natively, whereas the other apps for these sports books technically are like desktop functionality. So what made you decide for Fanatics, we want to do this app natively? So
we built natively into iOS and Android. We're very much mobile first. We don't have a desktop experience yet, but we'll get there when we get there. We know the world has already shown that it's moving mobile. But when you build natively into operating systems, you get access to functionality as part of those operating systems earlier and faster. And so we're still in the catch-up game right now. We're playing 4 or 5 year catch-up. I don't want to call it a standing start. because Fanatics has its own advantages and benefits, but ultimately we're still playing catch up. But from a native functionality perspective, I think what you'd expect to see is once we catch up in all the areas that we know we need to nail, it could be market breadth and depth, it could be rolling out the next version of search or a better version of our Discover feed, which again, the first version of that or the second version of that is coming in a couple weeks. You're going to start to see, wait a minute, this is a really interesting feature or attribute that I haven't seen in other apps before. Because when you could build React natively, or you could build kind of a mobile web page in a native wrapper. So really it's just a minified website, which does create limitations on what you can do. And for us, we knew that if you're going to compete, we don't know how it's going to manifest 3 or 4 years from now. We can't anticipate what Apple or Android are going to roll out. What we do know, though, is we'll be faster and able to react to that new types of functionality and features that these operating systems have if we build natively. Again, a lot of short-term brain damage and pain, but we know that it would pay dividends down the road.
Let's talk down the road. We already went past, we go present, now future. iCasino, casinos online. What is that future looking like for Fanatics?
So we know that casino is incredibly important to our business and also to our customers. So we have a casino experience out right now in the states where we are live with the Fanatics brand. PointsBet still is the brand in New Jersey. But we have an in-house game studio in partnership with Boom Studios called Fanatics Game Studios. We've got Fanatics Blackjack out, Fanatics Multi-Hands coming. We have a couple of kind of quick win games coming soon. We believe that content is the way that you can really differentiate. The same level of fidelity and quality we want to exercise on the sportsbook side, we've carried over directly into the casino. A lot of the folks that have been working on our casino don't come from casino companies. They come from like HBO Max. High volumes of content, super immersive and engaging. How do you find a way to take tiles of content and make it immersive? And we also have a lot of casino veterans. And so I think when you look at even the makeup of our company, it's a split of, call it 30-40% from the industry, 60% outside. So you get the benefit of both. But when you put that together, we hope that customers see like, wait a minute, I've got exclusive content that I can only play here, and it's really, really fun, and it's very high quality. It's designed in a way that feels very immersive. It feels more HBO, Amazonian type, Amazon Prime type of a look and feel. And then you need to obviously have all the right promo and functionality, all the real-time reactivation opportunity there. But we know that casino is going to be half of our business at scale. So we're fully invested in making sure that we win. But it starts with the customer experience and the content. And then there's a long tail of needs that we're going to be solving after.
We only have a minute left, but I would say the big thing between Penn and now Fanatics, merchandise is involved. How do you take what Fanatics Betting and Gaming is doing on the sportsbook side and parlay it with the Fanatics merchandise side?
So another larger bet of the Fanatics ecosystem has been the currency of fan cash. So fan cash, you can use it on f.com, you can use it on Fanatics, but how do you earn it? So every piece of merch you buy on fanatics.com, you earn fan cash. Every bet that you make on Fanatics Sportsbook or Fanatics Casino, you can earn up to 5% back in the form of fan cash, which makes us the most rewarding sports betting and gaming platform in the market right now. And because we reward you that fan cash in real time as your bets settle, you can go directly to fanatics.com and buy a piece of merch, buy an experience in the future. So we feel like the commonality and the common denominator of fan cash, especially as the utility and use cases of fan cash start to grow, is only going to become more compelling. Customers are usually very visceral in their feedback. Love, hate, love, hate. The only thing that we probably have seen unanimous consensus and love for is fan cash. I love earning on every bet that I make, and I love being able to use it on something more than just betting that feels very native and organic to the Fanatics story, and that's merchandise. In the future, maybe it's a ticket to our Super Bowl party, which Michael knows how to do a lot of things. He knows how to throw a frickin' party better than anybody.
Oh, yeah. That was a blast in Vegas. Scot McClintic, Chief Product Officer at Fanatics Betting and Gaming. Thank you so much.
Thank you.